human beings, by their very nature, they think and in a way plan. I mean, what I'll be doing tomorrow, how I will be, say after 6 months, what I should be doing, what are my near future and late future plans. One may not always call it plan, but there is this idea with human beings that they cannot really resist thinking about next steps to take in life. And sometimes the steps that one takes are deliberate and that makes for proper planning. Sometimes they are taken rather without much thinking, more out of the emotions or instinct, and then it cannot be actually called planning. The planning actually is where one does something more than just ruminating or daydreaming. Daydreaming is different from planning. Just ruminating also is different from planning. In just ruminating, the thoughts keep on arising without much connection or a deliberate attempt to organize them. Same with daydreaming. Whatever our desires are, they take shapes, and we go along that thinking that this is going to happen, this is going to happen, without any rationale that how is it going to happen. So planning is much deliberate and well thought out activity with lot of rationale behind it. And it is, we all therefore plan. But even then, what happens is we plan but don't execute the plans. The plans remain on the paper or in our minds. If we have not taken even the trouble of putting them in black and white, then they remain in our minds, never actually getting executed. And this is a problem in achieving one's goals. That yes, I want to do this, but and I make that if I do like this, then I will be able to take the next step, then I will be able to get this thing done. That the beginning should be, let me organize my desk. And that never gets done, so next steps again never get taken, you see. So execution is where we lag behind, and with the plans it is like this, that unless one executes them, you do not have the desired goals. Our problem lies in execution, and we are going to discuss today about this idea, that execution. First of all, let us see plan means what? A function involving formulation or one or more ways to achieve the goal. The planning then goes backward. It is, we then identify the intermediate objectives. The planning is that we have goal. And one important thing here is that the goal, if we go deep enough to see, the goal for everyone is really the same. Intermediate objectives could differ, but the goal, by the very definition of goal, that achieving which nothing else remains to be achieved, that is same for all, and that, as has been described by great sages and scriptures, from the time immemorial, and we can verify it by rationally going into that the goal is to realize or experience our innermost reality, this self, which in theistic terms gets called as God, our true reality, who really I am. That is the goal. It is not a subjectively chosen something, but it is actuality. Because everything else that you get in life, you may initially think that that is going to be my goal, but when you get there, you will find, you see that further something needs to be attained. This is not the end, this is not the goal, because you want to go further. Like I have, my goal is to become a billionaire, say. Just think about it. But when I get a billion, then the next step, what am I going to do with these billions? So then that means getting billion was not the goal. It is maybe a means to do something more in life. And when we analyze enough, we will be able to verify ourselves logically that the goal can be a realization or experiencing our true self. And then planning backwards. This is with all types of goals. What we need to do is, once you identify it, now the question is how you connect yourself to that goal. And so you start planning back, that how we can do it. This morning, some of our volunteers were working on, how to put, where to put the CCTV camera, that surveillance camera. So, and how long the wire is, how much we need, and so forth. So, we thought that let us begin, but then one intelligent volunteer said, no, let us first start from where we want to put the camera. And from there, then we can come backwards, and then we will know. Yes, that's the right way. That where is your goal? From there, now you see how that goal can be achieved. Then how that intermediate step can be achieved. How that intermediate step again can be achieved. And like that, you come to where you are. So it is really planning backwards. This is my objective, this is my goal, and from there I gradually, step by step, come to where I am. Thus I get plan. Now planning is backwards, but executing the plan is forwards. It is execution of the plan is going then step by step towards that ultimate goal. So we have to then identify the different steps in that plan, and there comes then the question of a strategy that we have to then plan. A strategy is then arranging all the materials and the tools that we need. We have to keep it ready. We have to think about this, that what I will be needing. So get them, arrange them in proper order. There is a sequence also that is involved. Everything cannot be done in a random way. There is A, after A you do the B. It is not always, you cannot change that sequence. That A and B, I have to do A and B together, is it not? Well, why I should do A first and B later? Well, there is a decided sequence in these matters that needs to be followed. It is not that first I will eat a cake and then go to buy it. First I have to buy and then eat. It cannot be, the sequence cannot be changed there. That first you eat and then buy, no. First buy and then eat. So there is a sequence involved in that. And we see that this sequence, a very well-known psychologist, Maslow, he has put, how we can go to that ultimate goal. That this is called sometimes Maslow's ladder or Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. So I think it is too, you may not be able to read from that distance. Are you able to read that little things? So the lowest as human beings or any being, you begin at satisfying the physiological needs. Well, I need food. I mean, it is how without food I cannot survive. So, howsoever spiritual I may be, but I will need something to put in my belly. So, physiological needs, that is the primary thing. I need air, I need water, I need food, I need shelter, and so forth. And then safety. Then comes, sense of belonging, love, and so forth, getting connected. That is a special feature of human beings, that they need to get connected. Many other species also share that. But human beings, they always crave to get connected with other human beings. That is why even if you are kept on an island, you will crave the story of Robinson Crusoe, that he made a hut for himself. He was, in many ways, he was physically surviving. It was not necessary for him to leave the island just to satisfy physical needs or safety. He was pretty safe there. There were no robbers there, for example. So it is, but still, the love, belonging to a community. We say, yes, I am a proud American. Well, yes, you have to be connected with the country. You have to be connected with community. What to speak of America? We say we are proud Rhode Islanders, although it is a tiny state, and we still are proud of our tininess too, So it is, we need getting connected. And then there are the further things that you get, then the sense of esteem. Yeah, you need to be, given proper respect. You are in a community, you are connected, but you want your honor, your respect. Yes, so therefore you need to get that. If we don't get that, then we feel that not right. I have to, I have to have my that honor in whatever I do. So that is another next step of craving that we have. And then the cognitive, that I want to expand my horizon of knowledge. I want to know more things. I want to get, aware of so many things. That is, therefore, we have the information disseminating instruments. And that is actually one of the reasons for the tremendous progress of human beings by building upon the knowledge gained from the others present and that were in the past. So thus we keep on building our storehouse of knowledge. So these are like cognitive needs, the aesthetic needs, that we want things to be beautiful. We want to, not only they are useful, but they should look pretty. They should be, for people will appreciate not only their functionality, but also their looks. Like when that camera thing I was giving you the example, that, well, the cable just left like that outside may look ugly. Well, it may function very well, no doubt, but then on a white wall, that black thing dangling will look ugly. Yeah, naturally, because as human beings we have that aesthetic sense also. So we need to have, you see, that beauty. Somebody was telling me that the beautification business is $1 billion industry, the beauty parlors, this, that. So, I mean, because we want that things should be aesthetically right as well. So, because that gives meaning to us, so therefore, aesthetic, beauty, it is a very important philosophical idea actually. It is sometimes, it appears to be just mundane. No, beauty has a deep philosophical significance. God is really the source of all beauty. The beauty in the world as we perceive, what happens there is that it is on a very flimsy ground. What I see as beautiful today, I do not see as beautiful tomorrow. My ideas keep on changing. But where this all sense of beauty appear, it appears from our true self. That is beautiful, and that is why we have that craving for beauty. It is actually the craving for self-realization, and which actually comes as the next step, self-actualization. And then you have the transcendence, to go beyond all. So, it is to go beyond everything, that is also a part in this, that it is a journey, and then it goes away, everything is then transcended. So you become in a way liberated. So this is a hierarchy proposed by Maslow. As for human beings who have the basic subsistence, those fundamental basic needs of, say, biological needs and safety needs, they are taken care of, then the Hindu scriptures provide for this hierarchy of achievements. That it is prescribed that initially, as a child, the child should be given the training in virtue that lead a life which will be morally sound. The ideas are given in the childhood. The child may not understand the meaning of them right away, but gradually they penetrate deeper and deeper in the person, and then that is the first part called dharma, the moral grounding. That yes, you have to follow the manners, you have to see that you put others ahead of you in getting things. So many of these things are taught, that how to behave. It is a wonderful science, how to behave with your parents, how to behave with your children, how to behave with your spouse, how to deal with your friends, how you conduct yourself in the job, keeping your values intact. These values are given as to a child. Then there is the artha, that is, get the wealth. So with that moral ground, you will not take up the means like robbery to accumulate wealth. You will do some business whereby, some job, some business whereby you will not be doing things which are hurtful to others or to society in general. You will keep that conscience always awake there, that what I am doing is very good, important for me, important for others, and it is morally right. So that is how you earn the wealth. And then with that wealth, many desires that we have, we try to fulfill those desires according to the means. The desires, they are many, and we chase to fulfill them. So, and a stage comes in life when you understand that the desires for the objects outside, they can never be fulfilled. The desires, they leave always a big hole, just a painful hole, in fact, that I tried hard to get this. I got this, but out of that I didn't get the satisfaction that I was looking for. So, after chasing many such dreams in life, one comes to see this. The person might have read it in scriptures. This is a part of that dharma, the initial training, that you read scriptures, you understand the stories of the sages. So at that time it won't make much sense. But with this experience now you will start remembering them. That yes, after all, I read this in Bhagavad Gita, I had read this in Bible, I had read this in the Sufi stories, that these desires after all cannot be satisfied because they are not our real desires at all. Actually, many say that I am not religious, how can I see these things? Religion is not just a belief system really, as sometimes it is perceived. Religion, if you look at it properly, it is just identifying our true desire, our true desires, and that appeared as desire. And we have to make a distinction between the two. What appears as desire and what is the true desire. What appears as desire is that object, even if you get it, you see that, well, this is not exactly that what you were looking for. So that was not the real desire at all. If that had been the real desire, then getting that would have brought a total satisfaction in life. It does not, and therefore you understand that they were not real desires. So, religion is the first aspect of it, is to identify what is my real desire. So, at this stage, it is supposed to be reached latest by the age, say, about 50, 55. Because by that time one has gone through these, that you attained the moral grounding, you accumulated enough wealth, then you saw, how the result of getting that, then you ran after desires a lot in life, tried many things to satisfy yourself. And after that, now you feel that that gave me the understanding that these were not after all my true desires. What is then my true desire? A craving comes at that stage in life. And if you get it earlier, fine, that in 10 years or in 12 years you are supposed to complete your schooling. You graduate grade 1, grade 2, like that. I am now done with my senior. So, that is, it takes 12 years. But I met parents of a young man, and he was so brilliant that it took him only 8 years to complete the course. and he wanted to get into medical school. But since he was younger, some universities did not let him get there. It is somebody can complete these stages much earlier, because as the idea of reincarnation says that you had done most of it in your previous life. So now it becomes easy for you. So this is desire for objects. And then when you see that the desire for objects does not bring fulfillment, it then becomes the desire for subject. Who am I? That is going to bring fulfillment. And then that takes us to the last stage. These are called, these four. One is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the liberation. These four are called in Sanskrit purushartha, which means that these are the things to be attained by a human being in life. So ultimately one reaches the liberation where you see that you are really infinite. It is only your body was born, and body is dying. You were never that, and that liberates you. This is how you plan things. This idea was given that this is how you can plan your life. And then you have to now have a strategy how to do it. Because whenever we are doing something, there are forces that will be opposing it too. We have to be aware of that. That is why it requires efforts. If there is no opposite force acting, then there will be no effort required either. It is, if I am, say, trying to go up on stairs, then I have to put in efforts because I have to work against the pull of gravity. The gravity is trying to pull me down, and I am trying to overtake that force of gravity, and so it requires efforts. So when I want to achieve my goal, then there are forces that keep on obstructing my journey to that goal. And so, how do we go about it? A very important thing is to get guidance. Many times in our ego, that is a function, that is a force actually, that is the opposing force. The opposite force is one of the opposite forces, and a very important one is ego. I know everything, what is there to ask others? Okay, I will figure it out. No, it is get proper guidance, very important. Then second thing is that you are not the traveler alone. You can find many fellow travelers. Then join forces with them. That is why, people come into community of like-minded. That yes, let us help each other in this journey. And this is a very important thing. Because, see, in forming this strategy, it is a warlike thing. So, like in war, just to give an example, the war is a good analogy here, not war with some other country or such things, but war against the forces that tie us down and do not let us go to our goal. So, there also we have to form alliance with like-minded people. And in forming that alliance, one has to therefore discard one's other likes and dislikes. Like in the Second World War, not that before war England and Russia and America were great friends with each other. No. But the objective is to win that war. So forget other differences and let us come together. So, therefore, it is joining forces with like-minded. Come together. Do not think of the drawbacks of other people. That that maybe I don't want to say, but somehow I don't like nose of that person. And now what does it matter? It is you have to. This takes effort, friends, because our prejudices are so strong. Oh, the way she does the hair, I completely dislike that. It looks so ugly. I am not going to where she is going. So it is, then you are not having proper alliance there. It is, you have to have let the like-minded people, in that sense, when they come together, then we get lot of help in this war. This requires actually a lot of help. In 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that the devotees, they come together. Because they also need to talk. Those who want to, consciously go to their goal, that is God, they come together. Like those who want to play poker, they come together. There, the interest is only, well, we have to play poker. Doesn't matter one puts on this kind of hat that is I don't like. As long as they are playing poker, fine, It is so. It is as long as that person is devotee. It doesn't matter where that person lives, what kind of income that person has, what business that person is involved in. Forget those things. As long as that person is a fellow traveler going in the same path, let us try to get help. So such people come together. Sri Ramakrishna used to give an analogy that the nature, the way the devotees go, their nature is like the hemp smokers. The hemp smokers, they come together, and then there is a big hookah in between. And then they come together and they circulate that hookah. So they keep on just talking about God. They never get tired of talking about God. Just as those who are come together for stock market, they never get tired of talking about stocks. It is, isn't it boring to keep on talking about religion all the time? Well, isn't it boring to talk about stocks all the time? And those who are addicted to football, forget it, constant that talk only. So they don't get bored about that. So let those who want to march towards that goal, we have to come together, forgetting many other likes and dislikes that we may have. So this is an important factor, friends, in forming strategy. And then do not let opposite forces unite. What are these opposite forces? We have one, we already mentioned, ego, big, terrible problem. Then we have the so many other different desires. We have anger, jealousy, even each one of them is terrible. But when they are again joining forces, fighting against them will become equally, to that extent, more difficult. And therefore, we should not let them come together. That it is not very easy to explain. But when we get that a little penetrative understanding, we will see how, when they come together, the problem becomes much more compounded. There is jealousy and anger. Now, to deal with the combination is far more difficult than just dealing with one of them. Because now the two enemy forces, they have formed a gang against you. So it is, one has to be careful about it. Now the execution becomes then this four-pronged thing, that firstly you have to have confidence that I will be able to do it. Not a haphazard attitude that, who knows, it sounds difficult. Well, we can do it. It is that confidence is very important thing, and determination. Most of the plans we see don't get executed because of the lack of confidence and determination. I lack confidence and I lack determination, then sure it is not going to be successful. So this is an important ingredient, and then this confidence and determination can be developed. We may not have it to begin with in a big quantity, if they can be quantified, I mean, but we may not have it in big quantity. But in the holy company, in the company of saints, we can actually give a big boost to it. And that will provide lot of power for our journey towards the goal. Then there is the discipline. That has to be there. Many times we have inspiration there, there is confidence and determination, but it doesn't become functional unless there is discipline in life. It is impossible, friends, for almost all of us, let us say, to proceed to any such endeavor without commitment and discipline. The discipline is very important for executing the plans. It is, if you see, even in these big projects, like if you are constructing, say, a nuclear power plant, now there are so many different things. And then you have to have, you see, the discipline that this has to be completed by this time. These people have to come there at 7 in the morning. The other team has to come by 12 o'clock. It is all has to be tied together so well that this discipline will enable us to move forward. Our life, when it is disciplined, it goes a long way for our progress towards goal. We can execute the plans only if we are disciplined. If no discipline, then, well, the problems are going to be very big. I can tell you that from my experience, because I am not very disciplined, and that is why many plans that I make do not actually work out. Because I start today, then I have told myself that I will be completing it, but then next day I forget about it. The discipline is so important in this. Regularity, discipline, put yourself in these limits so that this ingredient comes in our life, discipline. Then patience. This is something, friends, that we have to say that we inculcate it, because this attainment of goal requires work for a long time, as that Patanjali's great saying in his yoga aphorisms, that it comes with a practice determined practice carried on for a long time without letting go and with reverence. It is so beautiful. Satu dirghakal nairantarya asatkara sevito dridhabhumihi, that it is to be dirghakal, long time is needed for that. Then it should be unbroken. Long time means not like this. One person was telling me that, well, in last 25, 30 years, what did I achieve? That person was thinking, I am practicing this. Then I asked, well, have you really practiced, or 20, 30 years just rolled by? Have you been regular in your practice? Have you been carrying it on without giving up? That is what patience comes in. Yes, let me see, let me put in efforts in a way that without getting impatient. No results are coming. Oh, forget it, it doesn't happen. Many very aged people also say that, realizing God, experiencing God is an impossibility. We tried when we were young, but we saw that it cannot happen. Well, did you try it in this fashion? No. Did you try it long enough? No. The goal is, it is there for sure, but we have to go that distance. If you need to drive, say, to California, you have to be patient, half an hour driving is not, going to bring us to California. Even to come from Warren, how long does it take? Half an hour? So it is, So you have to be more patient, to have a long, important goal achieved in life. And then flexibility. It is very important that one way may not work. Then you should be ready to switch the way. Flexibility should be only about the path, not about the goal. The goal is there, that is determined. But if one path is not leading there, then I need not just stick to that path. Well, it is broken, there is some work going on, it is closed. Now let me find another path. So that is, that flexibility has to be there. And so this is how the execution of this plan can happen. And it does happen. And what should be avoided? There is the temptation to compromise must be avoided. This is a big pitfall. That, okay, let me make a compromise. Okay, God realization is not possible. So what I will do is that it is too difficult and I have got so many worldly desires. So what I will do is that my worldly desires 50% and then God realization 50%, I will combine these two. What it will mean that if I cannot go to east all the way, let me go to east for half an hour and west to half an hour. So it is not going to go, you are not going to go anywhere. The great teacher Shankaracharya therefore makes a very strong appeal in his commentaries on this tendency to compromise. Do not compromise with our ideal. You may make, if you cannot do it today, maybe you can do it tomorrow. That is another thing. That is not compromising. You are putting one more step in between, that's all. But do not compromise. If you compromise, then forget. You can never go to your ideal. So this tendency, and this temptation comes a lot. That why not, after all God is everywhere, one person was telling me that God is everywhere and God can wait. So it is because God is eternal and God is everywhere. So why not first let me do all other things and till then keep God waiting for me. And then later on I will think about God, or God is, I will just see that God is in these things also, and so forth, you see. So this is actually just cheating oneself. So this temptation to compromise has to be avoided. And then these are other very important practical steps that you have to see what is more important. Whenever we are taking up anything that we have to see that there are so many things to be done, but you have very little time, very little energy, so prioritize your resources. Whatever resource of time, resource of other materials, resource of energy. So that inner is more important than outer. It is to be remembered again because our mind cheats us so much in these matters. Inner is more important than outer does not mean neglecting outer automatically makes us give more attention to inner. Neglecting outer is not automatic with paying more attention to inner. You have to turn the resource that was going to outer towards inner. It is, otherwise we may miss both outer as well as inner. So, then multitasking. Multitasking is not that trying to do many things together. That is just again dividing our attentions. We may not succeed in doing that. But multitasking here means that while doing one thing, you can put another thing in it so that it can be done. Like, I have to buy gas and then I have to buy bread. So if I go to a gas station where they sell bread also, I will accomplish both. So what I mean is something akin to that try to do many things in one. When like many want to listen to the music, and also there isn't much time for exercise, so they have that in their ears and they go on jogging. So what happens there? Your exercise is done and you are listening to music also, you got time for that. So that is in spiritual life or in any kind of life that is to be oriented to the goal, we must remember that there are so many things to be done. So let us see how we can combine them. Now, while doing one, we can do other as well. So one has to see how to do that. And then, this is very important, that failures will come. In executing the plan, we may make many mistakes. There could be failures. And then at that time, don't get depressed. Because once the failure comes, my goodness, nothing, this. No, not like that. Remember that after all, everything goes according to the wish of God. As the Muslims often say, Inshallah, that it is, thy will be done. The very beautiful prayer of Jesus, that's a very, very important statement. I may tell my will, but I remember that thy will be done. And what thy will is, I am satisfied with that. After all, you know more than I know. You care more for me than I myself do. So therefore, we should be looking at it positively, that God did this. and then again start planning. There is a nice example about this, that, well, whatever God tells, I have to do it. There was this great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Brahmananda. Very funny, humorous stories about him. His style of teaching was through a lot of humor. So, if he has to go somewhere or do a particular thing, he would call an almanac expert. That, look, the most auspicious day for this, look at it. And that person will come and tell, well, this is the time and date that it has to be done. Look at the almanac and do it. Now, but suddenly, Swami Brahmananda will start doing it on a different date. That date is yet to arrive. And somebody would say that, why? No, Sri Ramakrishna appeared before me and told, do it now. So that overrides all almanacs. Then this man protested, then why should we see almanac? Well, as long as he doesn't show up and tell, I have to do the almanac. So we have to do the planning. What I mean is, the planning has to be done, and we have to strive to execute the plan to the best of our ability. And still we must remember that it is the wish of the divine. Everything is not in my power. So that is to be remembered. And thus we will be able to successfully do all this executing of the plans.